You're 19 years old, and you're standing at the top of a mountain in Salt Lake City, Utah. It's February 2002, the Winter Olympics. You're representing Canada in the parallel giant slalom. You've trained for this your entire adolescence. Every early morning, every brutal conditioning session, every season spent on the slopes of British Columbia learning the mountain like a language. You don't medal. You finish in a respectable position for a teenager competing on the world's largest stage. But you were there. You stood on that course. You represented your country. Most people spend their entire lives chasing something that feels that significant and never find it. You're 19 years old and you've already touched the highest level your sport offers. Most athletes at that age would build on it, would spend the next decade refining, competing, representing. You had the talent, you had the training, you had the moment. What you do with what comes after that moment is the whole story.
You're in your mid-20s. The Olympic spotlight has moved on, the way it always does. The next games, the next athletes, the next stories. The infrastructure of elite sport, the coaches, the schedules, the singular focus starts to loosen around you. You're back in British Columbia, Kelowna. The mountains are still there, the lake is still there, but the trajectory that felt so clear at 19 has become less defined. You're no longer the promising Olympic teenager. You're a young man figuring out what comes next in a city where certain opportunities exist alongside the legitimate ones. Kelowna in the mid-2000s is not just mountains and lake water. It has a criminal infrastructure that operates beneath the surface, the way these things operate in mid-sized cities everywhere. You become aware of it. Then you become adjacent to it. Then the line between adjacent and involved starts to move in one direction. You tell yourself it's temporary. You tell yourself it's practical. You have connections, you have confidence, you have the kind of reputation that comes from being a former Olympian in a small city. These things have value in certain circles. You let them have that value. That decision is the one that changes everything else.
You're in your 30s. What started as peripheral involvement has become something with structure. You're not on the edges of anything anymore. You're building something. A transnational drug trafficking organization. The word transnational means it crosses borders. It means it has reach. It means it has moved well past the level of local criminal opportunism into something that requires logistics, relationships, money movement, and enforcement. You're moving cocaine, large quantities. The supply chain runs from Latin America through networks that connect to Canadian distribution. This is not a small operation run by people improvising. This is organized. You are organizing it. The Olympic identity doesn't disappear. It follows you. A former Olympian running a drug trafficking network is a contradiction that the people around you find useful. It's cover. It's credibility in legitimate spaces. It's a story that doesn't match the reality, and the mismatch is protective.
What also follows you into this world is enforcement. Drug trafficking organizations at this scale don't resolve disputes through conversation. They resolve them through violence. You are not just moving product. You are authorizing what happens when the product is threatened, when people steal, when people talk, when people become problems. The distance between authorizing violence and committing it is a legal distinction. Morally, it is not much of a distance at all. You're wanted, not local, not by a single agency. The FBI gets involved. Then the investigation grows into something that involves multiple countries, multiple law enforcement agencies, and enough evidence to put your name on a list that very few people ever appear on. The FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives. The list exists since 1950. In over 70 years, it has named around 530 people. You become one of them. Your name sits alongside the most significant fugitives American law enforcement has pursued. The Olympic photo, the one from Salt Lake City in 2002,
young, competitive, representing your country, gets placed next to the wanted listing. The contrast is the story. Every news outlet runs with it because the contrast is undeniable.
You are somewhere, not in Canada, not anywhere law enforcement can reach you easily. You are running a criminal organization across international borders while simultaneously evading the people trying to dismantle it. This requires money. It requires loyalty from people who have every incentive to trade information for leniency. And it requires the ability to stay invisible inside systems designed to find you. The murder charges are part of what's alleged. Not just trafficking, not just conspiracy, murder connected to the operation. The organization you built didn't just move drugs, it killed people. Whether by your direct order or through the machinery you constructed, people died inside the world you created. It's January 2026. You're in Turks and Caicos, a British overseas territory in the Caribbean. You've been there while the investigation built and the warrants accumulated and the FBI listing ran in news cycles around the world. You were not invisible enough.
Law enforcement reaches you. The arrest happens. The man taken into custody is 42 years old. He competed in the Winter Olympics at 19. Between those two moments is a story that takes the full length of a career, a deliberate set of choices, and a complete transformation from one kind of life into another. The handcuffs are real. The charges are real. The legal process that follows is real. The photograph from Salt Lake City is still real too. Both things exist simultaneously, and the distance between them is the distance a person travels when they make one kind of choice at a fork and spend 2 decades following that choice to its destination. You don't get to write the ending of this story yet. The legal process is ongoing. The charges are serious. The evidence accumulated by multiple agencies across multiple countries over years of investigation doesn't disappear because you've been arrested. It becomes the case against you.
But here is what has already been written. A teenager from Kelowna made it to the Olympic Games. That is real, and it cannot be taken back. It happened. For one February in Salt Lake City, you were an Olympian. You were someone who had done the hardest thing in amateur sport. You were someone with a future that could have gone anywhere. And here is the other thing that has already been written. The organization you allegedly built caused harm. Real harm. To people who used what you trafficked. To people who were killed inside the world you constructed. To families who lost someone to violence connected to an operation that existed to make money. Those losses are also real, and they also cannot be taken back. The mountain in Kelowna is still there. The slopes where you learn to read terrain and respond and adjust and get up after falling are still there. The kid who fell 17 times and got up 17 times is still somewhere inside the person who ended up in handcuffs in the Caribbean at 42.
What that means about choice, about trajectory, about the distance between what someone could have been and what they became. That's not a question with a clean answer. It's a question that sits in the space between a 2002 Olympic credential and an FBI wanted listing, and refuses to resolve neatly. Some doors look like opportunities when you're standing in front of them. You only understand what they actually were after you've walked through and heard them close behind you.